technically, but it's referenced as the sunken place. And that's that place where individuals are under some form of hypnosis. And I think, as you just stated, it's a daily effort not to fall prey to that sunken place. Because again, if you look at all forms of media, be it virtual or be it TV or be it radio, will take you to the sunken place. Because when you look at what's on TV, sunken place. Listen to the radio. I was listening to Pandora and switching in between stations. And everything Jill Scott sings about is men breaking up, broken heart. Right behind her, Mary Blige, same thing. And when you listen to the women, it's a bunch of moaning. And then when you listen to the guys, it's a bunch of grinding. And this is slow music. This is supposed to be the artistic stuff. These are supposed to be the neo soul ones. And yet and still, when you listen to the content, there's no distinguishable difference from Big Greasy, Little Greasy, or whatever the names are as far as the so-called popularized rappers. Content isn't any different. So where does it bring you? To a sunken place. Because your idea is going to be, when it's all said and done and you get through listening, that the other is no good. Love does not exist. Love is blind. So forth and so on. And so then when you get attached to, or the next tentacle from the other social media get hold to you, it's taking you to another sunken place. Because the only thing that's communicated to you via these mediums is, if somebody got it, you ain't got it, and you so far from it, you might as well not even think about it or wish for it. So it's really disturbing. It's really, really disturbing. I don't think individuals understand that, again, they're walking around in that sunken place. Anytime you could just sit and look at an apparatus for hours, then you got to be cognizant of what is the content, because that's what's rewiring your brain. And there's no such thing as you can look at crap for hours and not think you're not in a sunken place. And so then what happens when you have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in that sunken place, and then they go out into the tapestry of society and influence and impact how one and the other relates or experience? And not to tell me that that's not going to be hell here on earth. Individuals talk about how, life is cyclical, and so that they are always, even from the time of Herod in biblical script, individuals talk about individuals who are in power always trying to identify the one who would raise up and therefore cut them off. And the reality is, it cycles repeat, but then cycles at the same time jump in warp speed beyond that particular pattern. And I think that's the junction we're at. I don't think it's an issue of us just dealing with rights. I think it's deeper than that. I think there's a particular cycle that we've come to an end, and we're supposed to jump in warp speed past where we are in one direction or the other. That's what makes this such a critical time. Because it's been critical for a very long time, but this is critical in a distinguishable way, because it's not just the repetition. It's about jumping and moving to an extreme of this cycle. So either out of existence or past the place in which we're in. Now, if we go out of existence, then that allows them to maintain presence. The only thing they have is presence, not existence. I think you have to have soul to have existence. I think to have existence, you have to be a creator. And they're not a creator, they're a destroyer. But time-wise, that we watch the stars, and from watching the stars, it would be determined who would be placed in kingship, what the name would be, and what the course of our action would be. It's like we didn't travel willy-nilly. We went to certain places at certain times and built certain things, and it reflected where the planetary bodies were. And where the planetary bodies are also communicates where the society consciously is. And so I was just communicating that where we are at this point in time is not where we were. There's a lot of reference to 2017. What's going on in 2017 is like what was going on in the 60s. But technically, it somewhat is, but it's not. Because where we are now is such a critical junction, because it is about when patterns change into another pattern altogether. So it's you're jumping past what has been cyclical to begin to create another pattern, which will be cyclical for a particular time frame. And so then in that jump, what happens is you could either fall out of existence, or in warp speed, you'll move to a junction beyond where you are now. So for us, what that would mean is either we're going to cease to exist if we don't make that jump, or in making that jump, we wouldn't be, if we was to say socially we're at the bottom, we wouldn't be socially at the bottom. We would be at the top. Not because we literally had to physically fight our way there, because you could never do that. It is something that occurs in the universe that flips things so that is the way that it pans out. But you would have to be at a particular place consciously, and you would know you're at that particular place consciously by how you are responding socially. And so then you can understand it if you watch their behavior, because they can't change their behavior. And there was a reason why they were created and not able to change their behavior. No different than there are some planetary bodies that are mutable, and then there are some that are immutable. You know what I mean? That which is immutable actually reflects to the mutable, and to those that are watching the mutable, what the laws are. If you didn't have the immutable, you couldn't determine how the mutable works. You know what I mean? It's like that contrast. If you didn't have the shades of gray, you couldn't determine what black was or what white was. You understand? So if you look at the behavior now at this point in time, especially with the individual that's supposed to be the head of their nation, because anybody that's elected to the position of the so-called White House is really the chief of the so-called white nation. You know what I mean? So when you look at the behavior of their head of state, it's reflective of something going on, because the impression, which is what they are, it's like they have a presence, and the only thing they can give off is impression. We are that which is in existence, so therefore we express. That's why we create and they destroy. You know what I mean? But at the same time, there's this relationship where one is reflective of the other, or reflecting off of the other. So when you watch his behavior, and when you watch everybody's behavior, you can tell a flip has occurred, because there was a point in time, even if you were low down and dirty, because they've all been low down and dirty, but it's just like us. When you say on the internet how we never would have aired our dirty laundry if we called ourselves leaders. And so to see individuals in virtual reality acting that way, that's a total flip from the way that we do it within this construct called society. So you see a flip is occurring because you're actually, by the time you go virtual, you're in another dimension anyway. And so you can see that in that dimension, what they've done, they created the web so they could try to interrupt what is actually natural. And that's why you'll find individuals that will go into that virtual dimension and all of a sudden they do things in direct opposition to the way that we have always done it in this dimension called the earth plane. And so then when you look, it's so ironic because when you look at their head of state, his behavior is the exact opposite of what anyone prior to him have been. Now they've all been scum and they're all corrupt, but it is something about that. What they don't understand is that when you go to change the reality of this dimension by manipulating it in that dimension just to augment our direction, you change yours too. And that's what you see with him. There was a point in time, remember you say there was a point in time we would have never aired our dirty laundry. There was a point in time they would clean him up even if he was a drunk, just like George Bush. But they cleaned him up. So what has happened that you can no longer clean yourselves up and you're being perceived as the dirty that you are? Because that's what's happening. And it's as a result of, again, the having so much energy, conscious energy, whether it's aware or not, being placed in the virtual realm. But look at it. But if you now take into consideration from a conscious purview, what would we say? We would say, depending on what it is that you feed your consciousness, depending on what it is that you feed yourself physically, you are either at harmony or at war with yourself. And that if you look at it from a collective perspective, then the individual is a reflection of the self. And so then if you have numbers of individuals who consciously are feeding themselves this and who are literally feeding themselves this, they are going to be at war with each other. If you look at it, just do a short, and you already know this, you look at what's on TV, all you've seen is individuals at war. That's all you see. You watch the individuals talk about my 600-pound life. That's an individual at war with themselves. Then you look at all the other television shows that are about individuals, cop movies, medical-oriented movies, which is really just about death. So when you look at, and then again, turn to the music. And I don't care that they put a nice melody behind it and a soft voice. It's all talking about love don't live, does not exist, always is fleeting. Well, what's the opposite of that? Hate. So it's just like when you learn how to use certain words in advertising to program individuals, to move them to do what you want them to do. And say on the internet, it's purchase sometimes. But at the same time on the internet, it's about becoming. Because the end goal of purchasing is to become. So sometimes the shorter route is just to show it to you without the words and without the seduction. You know, I've seen some sites where individuals are going at it with each other, and it's an entire community. And it's individuals who live next door to each other. It's not individuals coming over from 3, 4, 5 blocks. It's individuals that live on the strip called the block. And then when you go and in your mind and you look at the cell block, it's the same thing. So individuals who have never been to jail are acting like individuals who have, simply because they live in social constructs that's designed with the same vices of those that you find in the prisons. So you never get out. You born into it. You go to work, reside in it. You go to the classroom and you're being trained how to maintain your behavior in it, whether it's the cell block or whether it's the work block, because they all function the same and all controlled by the same and are very interrelated. And it's hard for us to deal with because we find corners and cliques that we become pseudo comfortable with. And then we look around and we listen and no one else is talking about it. So, oh, well, guess this is just the way that it can be. It's got to be. It is. So everything they created in the web was that the web is like for them, because the social mediums and the educational construct and the religious constructs and the spirituality, and you already know this, religion is two totally different things. And you do got to engage in practices. You do have to engage in rituals. We would say rituals, they would say religion. You know what I mean? You do have to have that. You really do, because you're not going to survive spiritually if you don't. Emotionally or character morally if you don't. You really do have to have it. But the point is that they've created something that's an offshoot of. And it's got us trapped. And so the social construct is the foundation and the base of their pyramid. Now, their Kaaba is the web. And if you remember that historically, the Kaaba represented the soul, but at the same time, scientifically, it was that from within the pyramid, you use to gather energy from the universe. And from that, you created the social construct. So what they've done is the jail, they take some of our energy to maintain their existence. Work, they take some of our energy to maintain their existence. The educational curriculum, they take our intelligence to maintain their existence. You understand? The medical field, they take our literal blood and organs to literally biologically maintain their fucking existence. The one thing that they could not capture with all of those cell blocks was our soul. And the internet was created like the Kaaba to steal that. Because what do individuals get on the internet and do? They flood it with images of their soul, emissions of their soul. You get people who will do poetic pieces on there. You will get individuals to put up the music, things that are literally created from your heart and your soul, that which they have not captured yet. You put that, and they take that. And that's how a Beyonce, who was prior to being knocked up with twins, promoted like a whore, strutted across the stage like a whore. Now all of a sudden, she's representing that which is representative of the feminine aspect of your soul. And then, is it coincidental that they got a masculine counterpart? Well, see, they couldn't do it with Jay-Z. And they couldn't do it with Kanye West. They did it with Kendrick Lamar. And what is he spitting? 1 minute he's an Israelite, next minute he's a Moor. Why? Because that's what you're spitting on that virtual reality. That's what you spitting, and it comes from your soul. Why? Because that's who you knew yourself by before they enslaved you. You knew you were chosen. You knew you ran and you ruled it from one end to the other, from one dimension to the other. And when you knew that, you called yourself a Moor. When you understood you were chosen, you called yourself an Israelite. And so is it a coincidental that that's what he's teetering between at the same time, and then he and her do a show at the same time? Seriously? Seriously? Really? Remember, it's about keeping us from making the jump. It's about distracting us to the point, that we won't even see its possibilities or recognize that we are too. And there'll be too many that'll actually believe that they're to go that way. After she dropped the twins, then what? She gonna start sliding across the floor again. What? So what have you done? You've galvanized the energy. You've derailed the energy. And so when you start sliding again, you're gonna bring everybody down with you. Everybody. Everybody. Kendrick Lamar is not going to be allowed to sing what he is singing for too much longer. They're only allowing him to do it. Let me get this right. Prince couldn't sing about the sexual things he was singing about, but you can sing conscious historical information that they won't let be printed in a book and taught in the school, but they control the same medium. Are you suggesting that they're asleep, that you slipped through and did that? Since when are they going to create the platform? Because it's their platform. We all are clear on that. And the game called rap or the music industry is also their platform. So are we under the impression he slipped through? Or should we understand that because they cannot change, they do the same thing the same way when they can sense, because that's all they can do. They can sense when it's going to happen. And that's when they go to act a particular way and go to derail a particular way. And that's why they moved it to the virtual reality, because then they could literally watch everybody at the same time. And they could have a bloodless one. Why? Because again, in the 60s, what did they say? It damaged their reputation internationally to just be dropping individuals in the street like that. But at the same time, the movement of individuals were threatening their hegemony here. So they had to create a world that's like a back door and a so-called dark space where you could do it. And you can have individuals participate in it ritualistically, because individuals go there religiously. There's some individuals, there is not a day go by they're not on that medium. And there's some individuals that spend all their time, even if they're at work, on that medium. Got it where they get a beat if they get a tag on that medium. And you don't think they are using that to their advantage? Of course. But it's all, remember, everything is designed to be able to watch the impression or the expression, to control so that it can maintain their presence. You would forget about them. And the moment you do, they cease to exist. But we don't believe that. We don't believe that, but it's true. It's true. Everything we gave on a day-to-day basis, we begin to give to ourselves.